Hello, welcome. The history of the world is a long and winding one. We read about really great people who lived for a while on earth, set goals for themselves, and left a legacy of greatness and impact. We read about other people who come to the world, in no time they leave, and you can't trace where they lived and how they impacted the world. So, as a young person, how do you set your own goals? And it's not about how fast you move or how fast you achieve those goals. It's about how to get those goals right and execute whatever ambitions you have in life. Because life in itself is a race in some cases, but in most other cases, it is not a race. Some people are slow starters. And do you remember in school, when you were in elementary school, there were people who started really slow. And then they picked up in terms of their pace and how much information they were able to imbibe or absorb. So at the kindergarten level, some can be really daft, so to speak. But you get to the high school level or the university level and they excel. Some to start really well. There are people who start off and you think, oh, they are cut out for engineering, medicine, or law, and they end up doing something much, much different from that. So when you set your goals, don't look over your shoulder. It is important you have role models. Role models may shape your thinking. Role models may underpin the philosophy that will take you there. But no matter how big your role model is, set your own standards, even though you may look up to the person. There are very few role models or mentors for people to look up to in the world today. So how do you set goals? And when you have set those goals, how do you go about working to achieve them? I am not a success story, and I'm sure whoever you are watching me, you can't beat your chest and say you are a success story. Not even people who rise to the position of presidents in the world achieve whatever goals they have or vision they have for their country before they leave the world. So when you set goals, your goals should not be as outlandish as building castles in the air. Somebody doesn't have savings of even $1,000 and he's thinking of being a billionaire. And somebody doesn't even have the idea of doing basic business. He hasn't even started. And the person says, I want to be Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. So when you even choose who your mentors are, your choice should be in sync with the things you are doing currently as you anticipate to achieve the greatness those people have achieved. And please, don't let anybody's success be the yardstick for your own success. It's either you do a little below average or you outsmart or outshine the person you are looking up to. And it is the pride of every parent to see their ward do better than they ever did. There are people who are born to really educated families. The father is a law professor and the mother is a banker, for example, or the father is a teacher and the mother is a nurse. These are highly erudite and educated families. So as children grow, sometimes parents make the mistake of determining what the life goals of their children should be. So if your father happens to be a medical doctor, everybody in the family wants to see you become Dr. Junior. If your father is an engineer, everybody wants to see you grow up into an engineer. If your mother is a banker, everybody wants to grow to be a banker. Society sets some of these goals for us, but within the larger universal set of what society considers acceptable, do make it a point and create your own subset of goals that are peculiar to you, goals that are achievable, goals that are not over ambitious. Ambition is good, but when you become over ambitious, you lose track of where you want to go. You lose track of the focus you need to have your realistic goals achieved. So be realistic. I see fellow young people say, I want to build the biggest of businesses, and you've not even, your basic idea hasn't gotten off the ground, for example. So, what are your goals in life, and how do you seek to achieve those goals? And then there is no formula to success. Some people tell you stories of how they started a modest business. They will tell you they started a shackle office as small as a hen coop, and now they are MDs or CEOs of multinational companies. Some too will tell you, we just fell on the lap of privilege and luxury because they have inherited generational wealth. So in Africa, most people have to start from ground zero, quite unfortunately, because the idea of generational wealth is not too common in our part of the world. People build their fortunes and achieve their goals bottom up. They start from the foundation and they rise to the level they want to get to. So your goals should be realistic. They shouldn't be over ambitious. They can be ambitious, but when they become over ambitious, then you'll be tickling yourself and laughing. You check your balance sheet, your monthly returns within the lower end of 4 digits, and you're thinking of being a billionaire. It is quite an often mentioned thing. Wherever you go, people will ask you, where do you see your business or your firm get to in the next 5 years? Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years? I become excited when people become that futuristic to want to ask you, do you have any plans? We all live by the day. We don't plan in the long term. But when you set goals for yourself, you need to, well, of course, there are some variables you don't control. There are other variables you can control. For those you can't control, do your best to mitigate their impact on your larger goal. And those you can control, do as much as you can. Do the best you can to control them. We have control over time. You decide of the 24 hours within a day how you want to use your time. How profitable do you and I use our time? We use our time doing a lot of unproductive things. When you have a journey to embark upon and a destination that is clear cut, every hour counts, every minute counts, and every second and even a micro or a nanosecond counts. So we have control over time, thank God. So how do you use your time? You have control over your meager resources. In this part of the world, instead of really nice dissertations or project works that are done to earn a first degree, instead of getting startup capital to pump some oxygen and give some life to some of these nice projects, they gather dust on the shelves of libraries in various universities in this country. So you start from ground zero. But no matter how meager your resources are, you have control over your resources. You determine your expenditure based upon your inflows. So it is important that when we set off or look at the things we want to achieve, we need to look at the variables we have control over. And I'm awake. It's past 10 p.m. It's a matter of choice. Instead of doing this, if I have deadlines to meet, I would maybe say, because the deadline is on Monday, this time would have been spent doing other things. So time is of great importance, and you need to utilize every time you have, because time spent can never be regained. So it is important that as we go about thinking of goals to set and how to achieve them, we look at the things we have control over. And please don't mimic or imitate anybody. Imitation is a shortcut to limitation. You can look up to people If you are into NBA, basketball, there are good examples for you. LeBron James, and before him, Michael Jordan. If you are into boxing, you have Michael Tyson and Muhammad Ali and other people to look up to. If it is football, you have role models. If you are into tech development, you develop softwares. There are people around the world in your own area or country you can look up to. But please, don't dock your ship. Don't anchor your ship where they chose to anchor theirs. You can go and sail further afield before you come to the anchorage. So you may say, okay, I want to do this. I want to be a writer. Are there any good examples of people who are great writers? Yes, you can look up to them. But it doesn't mean mimic whatever they do. We're into copycat. We plagiarize everything. Obama is a terrific public speaker. If you want to be like Obama, if you want to take Obama as your mentor, don't do body gestures and tonations and, body language that would just look like Obama. Measure impact and substance and be original in how you create your own impact and substance. Maybe Obama moved the American voters with his speech. You may want to move the world. You may want to move Ghana. You may want to move people in your local community. So you can take somebody as a mentor, but don't imitate, because when you imitate, you are limiting yourself. Imitations could lead to limitations. So it is important that you set your own parameters of where you want to go and how you want to achieve your goals. This is very important. You find people learn everything about their mentors, including their intonations, their tonations. Oh, Louis Farrakhan speaks well. You may measure impact and substance rather than doing mannerisms of Louis Farrakhan, for example. Originality is key in the achievement of your goals. And when you start on your journey to achieve your goals, as much as possible, move from small ambitions to bigger ones. Sometimes we punch above our weights and we end up crashing. When a business idea or when a goal grows so fast, it's just a natural phenomenon. You begin to, rise, you peak at some point, you plateau, then you begin to descend. And so when you peak too early, you fall too early. And so you find people go into a new area, a new terrain, entirely new. But because of some resources available to them, they want to pump everything during the early years of whatever goal they have, and they end up crashing. For example, if you want to start a media house, competing with CNN will be a wrong thing to begin with. But then you can learn from the experiences because of CNN, because CNN also had to evolve. Before the first Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm, how many people around the world knew CNN? There was no cable news in most parts of the world at the time. But when the first war in Iraq happened, CNN found an opportunity to break new ground and truly go international. And today, apart from BBC and CNN, you can count on the tip of your fingers any international giants in the media industry. Maybe RT, which is owned by Russia, Russian Times, and then CCTV, owned by China. And it has now got CGTN, and there is a global television network China has, China Global Television Network. So when you set those goals, please, you can look at big players in the area or in the industry. You don't start off as a medical doctor doing your housemanship and you begin to think of doing heart surgery, so you need to, grow at your own natural pace. And when you are growing too fast, you have to be careful, Because when you grow too fast, you crash fast. There have been businesses we've seen in this country, people just came like a thunderbolt. They outwitted and outgrew everybody, only for them to crash in no time. So in goal setting, it is important that you take charge of the pace at which you are developing. You take charge of the immediate ecosystem you can control. And sometimes when we set off on a goal, trying to reach our targets, we start and then we diversify, we multitask. I say, okay, well, I want to impact people in my community on sanitation. When you do something sanitation and it becomes successful, then you want to go into all other areas. Or beyond sanitation, I want to do food delivery or package delivery. Sometimes it's good when you diversify, but diversify and grow into new areas only when you've consolidated your core goals and objectives. You perfect what you have set out to do when you have consolidated your gains and you've got your feet well dug in. Then you may go into other areas. But you find a young graduate, maybe you have access to 50K or 100K. Then you begin to do everything. And eventually you lose track of the things you want to achieve. And so when you set your goals, grow naturally. And don't be growing looking over your shoulders. And sometimes because of the kind of society we live in, a young lady grows with her, colleagues. They become successful, they are nurses, and her own family will tell her, but you grew up with this person and she's a nurse. You find a young man trying to carve a niche, and he wants to create his own world and be unique in the pursuit of his goals. And his own family people will tell him, why are you still unemployed? Your ideas aren't working. Look at people you started school with. They are working, they are duly employed. So sometimes, in a bid to keep up with the Joneses, in a bid to don the cloak of success, as society sees it, we jettison entirely the goals and objectives we have in life. Since everybody is joining this thing, let me also join. There are people who start off just joining the bandwagon. But please, no matter how far you have gone on a wrong tangent, never hesitate to take a U-turn and follow your passion. When we were in school, there was a time one of our teachers recounted something to us. And if you want people to have a unity of purpose and a sense of unison, then it is in the examination hall. Everybody who wrote the exam answered a certain question or a group of questions in a certain way. And it is customary that when we all come out of the examination hall, we discuss how we solved questions. So according to the teacher who recounted this to us, and the underpinning principle or ideal in ambition, goal setting, and life he was teaching us for me was the principle of originality. Be original. It doesn't matter if you look crazy in the eyes of people. It doesn't matter if your ideas appear weird and queer to the people. They may all be on one side, but it doesn't mean they are right. They say majority is always right. You can have the majority, but the whole of the majority could be wrong. So this gentleman, who was not interested in examination leaks and all that, had originality and studied for an exam. Immediately after the exam, everybody was discussing, and we've all done this before. Oh, as for me, I killed question 1, section B question 2. This was how I answered it. And it looked like the answers other people gave were coalescing, were gathering and coming together to fit a certain pattern. Then his was entirely different. But because sometimes we are social beings, you are tempted to believe that if every graduate is going into this thing, let me also go into it. If besides the essence of life is to draw a salary, but maybe after graduation, you are incremental in your plans. Some people may get a job immediately after their national service. You may take your time, study the environment, and start to write after 5 years after graduation. Everybody in their time. And God's time, they say, is always the best. But in our haste to save face, for example, someone even writes an exam at the SHS level. Your ambition is to maybe pursue actuarial science. But because all your colleagues are going to school, and your mother will be in the neighborhood, someone will say, no, why is everybody's child going to school and your child is still home? Maybe because you want to do actuarial science, you want to, better some grades. But people will see you as a failure. And because they are all going to the university, you compromise on the goals, the larger goals you would have set for yourself. Oh, everybody is going. I don't want to stay home. I don't want to be the odd one out. Sometimes you have to swim against the tide. You have to go against the grain. You have to be the odd one out to be able to stand out eventually. So, this gentleman was the odd one out, according to the teacher who recounted this to us. Everybody answered the questions in a certain way. And collective, sense of victory and ownership made him feel left out. And this young man, threw himself from a story building, maybe their dormitory, and then died. And eventually, when the results came out, according to the teacher, and I'm sure some of these stories are created not because they really happened in real life, but they are created, or they may be created just to encourage people. And when the results eventually came, the collective that thought that they were right in the kind of answers they gave, because their answers fit a certain pattern, turned out to be entirely wrong. And the one who was the odd one out and had already taken his life happened to be the one on the right track in terms of the format and the content of the answers he gave. So you may sound crazy, you may look crazy. When people set out to create Google, they called it Google with a lot of O's. Before then, we only had goggles. When somebody set out to do something great, people would laugh at him. You remember the Ark of Noah? The Quran says, وَيَصْنَعُ الْفُلْكَ كُلَّمَا مَرَّتْ عَلَيْهِ مَلَأٌ مِّنْ قَوْمِهِ سَخِرُوا مِنْهُ قَالَ إِن تَسْخَرُوا مِنَّا فَإِنَّا نَسْخَرُ مِنْكُمْ كَمَا تَسْخَرُونَ فَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ مَنْ يَأْتِيهِ عَذَابٌ يُخْزِيهِ وَيَحِلُّ عَلَيْهِ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ وَكُلَّمَا مَرَّ عَلَيْهِ مَلَأٌ مِّنْ قَوْمِهِ سَخِرُوا مِنْهُ. Anytime a group of people from the people of Noah went past his own goal, Noah had a goal. God Almighty had given him a divine ambition. He had given him a divine objective to achieve. And this gentleman, Noah, our father Noah, was building an ark far from the sea line. And people thought it was odd. So anytime people passed by him, they would make jests of what he was doing. They would laugh at him. Then he would tell them, if you laugh at us, if you mock us today, then we also mock you the way you are mocking. But soon you'll get to know upon whom a punishment will come, and upon whom a perpetual punishment will be on. And so sometimes you may be doing your own thing. Somebody will say, everybody is studying science, and you don't know what course to study at high school. You are doing home economics. You find people say that, as for general arts is meant for people who are not too smart. I want my son to do science, my daughter to do science, because society tells you the smartest of brains, the smartest of kids, young people, teenagers, they do science. Look, if it is drawing, visual arts. And visual arts, unfortunately, is one of the least respected courses in vocational studies. KTI, people think, oh, those who are not so bright, they are those who end up in KTI. They are those who end up in NVTI. The not too smart people end up in vocational schools. But they are learning a handiwork. They are learning to craft things. And they may help in the industrialization process of this country better than those who are seen to be the brainy ones. So don't look over your shoulder. When the whole world thinks it's right and you are wrong, you may be right and the whole world is wrong. Never vacillate or waver in the goals you have set yourself. Remain true and committed to your goals. And of course, we are human. Sometimes in the path you take, you may err, and people will draw your attention. Oh, you are doing it this way. If you did it this way, it would yield a better result. You can listen to people, be a good listener. But it doesn't mean implement everything people tell you. There are some people, before they take a single step, they have to consult everybody in their community. It's good to consult, but when you over-consult, you miss the target. When you over-consult, then you are handing over the vision you have to achieve that goal to people. And people are only people. They will advise you based upon the raw data you give them. But the data with you is a processed data because you have slept over the things you want to achieve. The goals you have been processed in your brain or your mind time and again. But when you go to people and you dump raw data on them, in the spur of the moment, they may give you an advice. On the spur of the moment, they may give you an advice based upon their generic understanding of where they think you should go. But you may have a unique, way of looking at things. So please consult, seek advice. Don't be like an island, but don't over-consult, because when you over-consult, you end up losing the plot and you may never achieve the goals you set out for yourself. So it is important that we don't lose sight of that fact. So today, in summary, I would like to say that goals are important. A life that is not revised from time to time. Like tonight, ask yourself, how has my life been in the past 10 years? How do I want to see my life in the next 10 years? Like, we live every day as it comes. Yes, there are things that are divine, they are destined to happen. You can't control the fact that the sun will rise from the east tomorrow and set in the west. You can't control the fact that we are in the night, getting to 11 p.m. and tomorrow dawn will break. Those are things left unto God Almighty Allah. He controls those. But for the opportunities of 24 hours every day, presented us by Allah, presented us by our Creator, we have the absolute control over how we spend the hours therein. So set your goals right. You may take mentors or role models, but don't mimic them, because imitations will only lead to limitations. Don't set your goals looking at what others are doing. You can learn from best practices, but be original in the pursuit of your goals. And don't outgrow your ambitions. Set realistic goals. Develop at your own natural pace. And dare to be the odd one out. Dare to be the odd one out. Because as the world sees you as super crazy and weird, you may be on the right path to achieving your goals. I hope this helps. Take care and bye-bye.